Hello. Today we're going to talk about Topic 2, Section 3, Graphs of Functions. So it's very important that you understand the difference between sketch and draw. So sketch is, I think, exactly how it sounds, do a rough sketch. You just want to make sure that you have general idea there. X-intercepts, Y-intercepts. You can write this on notebook paper, okay? It's not a big deal. The drawing of a graph should be exact. So you get out that ruler, you get out that graph paper, you make it to scale. Okay, so drawing is exact. I want it to look perfect. Okay, so for the first part, just make sure you can understand the X and Y intercepts. It is exactly how it sounds, but people mix them up all the time. So we're going to have our x-axis and our y-axis. Our x-intercepts are when I'm along the x-axis. It's all of these. Well, all those points, if you were to actually plot them and figure out what x, y's they are, they would all have something in common. All the y's would be 0. So the x-intercepts are when y is 0, and hopefully you remember the y-intercepts are when x is 0. Okay, because we'd be along the y-axis. Now notice that it says x-intercepts and y-intercept. Okay, that's because if we're talking about functions, there's no way I can have multiple y-intercepts, because then it wouldn't be a function. Okay, so remember, we're talking about functions. Got to pass the vertical line test. So let's use our graphing calculator to help us find these answers. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways you can solve this. So let's look at our graph. Oh, let me pull it up here. Okay. So we go to y equals, we type in our equation, and then we hit graph. And so you should get something that looks like this. Now I kind of want to go in a little bit closer so I can see those intercepts, so I can adjust my window. So I'm going to make my x a smaller range. So instead of -10 to 10, I'm going to go from -5 to 5. See what happens. So now I can start to see my x and y intercepts a little bit clearer. If I want to use my trace function, do second trace, and we can do our zeros, and that's going to be our x-intercepts. So we're going to do our left bound. So I'm going to go all the way over. There we go. So I'm going to go left here because that's my first x-intercept, so hit enter. Then go to the right side, and then I'm going to guess it. And then I've got my 0 here. Okay, so at -3.13. So x-intercept for this one, here I'm going to write it, oh, I guess I should do it in blue. Stay color coordinated. Okay, so the x-intercepts was at -3.13. We're doing 3 significant figures. That's not the only one. Keep messing that up. Okay. So we can also do second trace, find the 0, and now we're going to go to this one where it's hitting the x-axis. So we're going to do left bound, right bound, guess. And now we've got 6.626 negative 626 Alright, and now we're going to do one more time. Do our 0 to the left bound. Do the right bound. And give it your best guess. So now we've got 0.255. Okay, now that was when y was 0, so we're basically setting that equal to 0. Well, then we can definitely still use the Poly Simulation app, so we can go to Math. So another way to solve the same thing, go to Apps. Poly Simulation, it's number 4 on this one. And then, let's see, we're going to do the Polynomial Root Finder. The highest degree is a 3, it's a cubic. Hit Next. Then I just type in my coefficients, so we're going to have 2, 7, 2, -1. We hit Solve, and look, we got these same answers that we got here. So another way to solve the same exact problem, well, with this one, okay? Then we need to find the Y-intercept. Well, the Y-intercept is when your x is 0. So if that's 0, and that's 0, well then my Y-intercept is just -1. So how we write our answers they're going to be as points. So the Y-intercept is going to be 0, -1, and the X-intercepts are going to be -3.13, 0, -0.626, 0, and 0.255, 0. So that's how we'd write our intercepts. Okay, so let's do another one here. So we're going to quit this and go back to the main page. Go and type in our new equation. So here we're going to, since I can get an exact decimal, I'm going to put 0.5x minus 2. And just to get my window back to normal, I'm going to hit zoom standard, so zoom 6. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, I've got too many decimals. Apparently I hit that twice. Okay, so here is our equation. So we can graph it using the 0 function here, and then plugging in 0, right? Or, really guys, we could just do the easier way, right? The algebraic way, in my opinion. It's going to be much quicker. So here, if we want to find the x-intercept, remember we're solving for x, so y is 0. So it'd be 0 equals 1/2 x minus 2. Then we solve it, and we get x is 4. So our x-intercept is 4, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then our y-intercept is when we are solving for y. So when x is 0. So y equals 1/2 times 0 minus 2. We get y equals -2. So our y-intercept is 0, -2. So we can graph that. And we know it's going to be a line because that's how it is on our graph. And here we can label our intercepts. So we can put 0, -2, and 4, 0. That's what they mean by sketch. And the only reason I really have tick marks is because I could. If these were, 7,000, 8,000, I wouldn't use 8,000 tick marks, right? I'd adjust my scale. So, keep working it out. So do the same thing. You can plug them into your into your calculators and then graph them. So pause your screen and give it a try. Okay, so you should have gotten these two as your sketches. All right, make sure you label all your X-intercepts, all right, and your single Y-intercept. Okay? All right, so function notation. What happens when we add, subtract, multiply, and divide functions? Okay, we can just rewrite them. All right, this is just a shorthand way. Okay, this is not an extra variable. Don't distribute. That just means f of x plus g of x. Okay, because mathematicians are lazy and they didn't want to write the parenthesis and x's twice. Okay. So with basic functions, right, you can add the equations together. So that's just f of x plus g of x. All right. So here, if we're adding f of x plus g of x, oh, that's not the right g of x. Or f of x. Okay, so apparently I just copied the wrong functions down. That's alright, I fixed it. So when we add the functions together, alright, what's going to happen to our domains? Alright, the domain, we just add the same domains. So here, the domain could have been anything, but here we had a restriction, right? X couldn't be -1. So we keep it at -1. Right? Plus you can see it with the equation. In our new function, the only division problem we have is that +1. Alright, so now we subtract the equations. So we literally do f of x minus g of x, and then we subtract the two. So the only difference is that negative sign. And our domain, alright, again, the only restriction we have is that division sign. So x can't be -1, right? You can't divide by 0. So now what happens when we multiply the equations? Alright, so now we do this. Well, here the only restriction we're going to have is in our denominator. Nothing else changed. Same thing. Then the division, right? Division is always weird. So now we're going to have f of x over g of x. So a fraction within a fraction. So we do the keep, change, flip, and we get this. Now notice we have a different denominator. So our domain is now both of them. We include the original one and our new one. Okay, so really when it comes down to domain, the division is what trips people up, or it's what changes everything. Alright, let's do an equation, or an example. So here, we've got f of x and g of x, so here, let's do, this is just saying f of x plus g of x. That's what this is saying. So we have x plus 3 plus 1 over x minus 2. So this is the sum function, okay? And the domain, the only issue I have is this denominator. And I know x minus 2 can't be 0, so x can't be 2. That's my domain. That's my restriction. Okay, let's do this one. Let's do f minus g. So f of x minus g of x. So now we have x plus 3 minus 1 over x minus 2. So we want to find the domain. The only restriction in this is the denominator. And we can't divide by 0, so this can't be 0. So x can't be 2. That's your domain. Alright, so this is everything you need to know. Alright, making sure you know how to use your calculator and all this good stuff. If you have any questions, come and ask me in class.